Hey everyone, I wanted to invite you to probably the biggest announcement Empower LEP has made thus far. On Wednesday, May 1st at 3:30 p.m. Pacific, I am holding a live that you are not going to want to miss. Why? Well, we're announcing a program designed to tackle the numerous challenges faced by aspiring LEPs and new practice owners. This program can save you months, even years of trial and error, and literally tens of thousands of dollars in training. I have gone through the trials and tribulations building my own practice, so you don't have to. No one taught us how to run a business in grad school, and you shouldn't have to figure it out all on your own now. Go to empowerlep.com/live and register to attend. We have limited seats not only for this live, but also for the program. Those of you who register will get priority. We look forward to seeing you there.
But also it's very important to have in your informed consent, specifically spell that out. What you're going to do with the protocols, who has access to the protocols, why they have access to the protocols, that you are under FERPA because you're paid by the district. So it's really important to have that you have all that transparency that I know a lot of LEPs do not think about. Just because there's no LEP school.
Right. Welcome to the Empower LEP Collaborative Podcast, a podcast to empower, inspire, and collaborate with aspiring and practicing licensed educational psychologists and like-minded professionals. We're your hosts, Jana Parker and Bethany Zoeller, bringing professionals together to talk business, private practice, and find inspiration from our community.
Welcome to another episode of the Empower LEP Collaborative Podcast. We're your hosts, Bethany Zoeller
and Jana Parker.
And today we are excited to talk with Mrs. Gina Beaman, Dr. Gina Beaman. I should be making you a doctor. I'm sorry. About your LEP. We actually have so many things that we're going to talk to you about today. I apologize in advance. I have so many questions for you, but we're so glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be here. It's a great honor. You guys are giving all that information out to LEPs. I know when I got mine in 2011, it was, I couldn't find anybody, just, what to do, how to do it. So
that's when I got mine too, 2011.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm the baby, 2020. Anyways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a newbie.
You're a newbie.
I'm a newbie. So Gina, can you give us a little overview? I know that you're working full-time in the schools, but then you also have your LEP side hustle. So I would love to hear about your side hustle. How much time do you put into it? What are you doing there? What's its name? Fill us in.
Well, all great questions. So I do not put a whole lot of time into it. Haven't recently, because I am so overwhelmed with working full time. It's just very hard to, as a matter of fact, I just got a phone call that I need to answer and see what they are looking for. But I get calls all the time. I have a Google phone number set up for all of that. And so they leave me messages and I just get back to them on whether I can help them or not. As far as my journey, I became licensed in 2011 and didn't do a whole lot until I set up my business in 2013. I did listen to your previous podcast with the tax attorney about the LLC, and I did start an LLC, but I talked to my tax person and says I need to do as an S Corp. And so, but still, little did I know that you couldn't have an LLC. But years later, I decided just to do a sole practitioner, just because it's easier for me. I don't do a whole lot, and I just don't need that right now. And I have my website set up through therapy sites. And I also am on Psychology Today.
What's your business name?
It's BeamanAssessments.com. Beaman Assessments.
Where are you located?
In Claremont.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So basically, because I do so much with middle school, that's where I am stationed right now. Previously, I was all over the district. So we did preschool. It's a K-8 district that I work in Etiwanda School District, elementary, and then middle school. So now I've been at the middle school solely for about, probably the last 6-7 years. But I'm so busy. What I wanted to do outside was not do kids and not do any IEEs. I didn't want to get stuck in that world on the outside of working in the school district. And so what I focus on are college-age students. And I really got that notion to do that when I was working as a learning disability specialist for the California community colleges. So that's something that you have to be certified to do. And I thought, oh, well, that's what they need. I'm a school psychologist. Let me just apply. And then it was like, no, you can't do that. You need to go through all these hoops, and then you can become a certified learning disability specialist. And so, so I did that, did an internship for, I don't know, over the summer. It's a lot that goes into it. So anyway, I did that, and I thought, I can do this. I can do this on my own as an LEP, because when COVID and the shutdown happened, the community colleges were not doing any testing. And they didn't start doing testing until probably 2022, early 2023. So they just didn't do it at all. And they're not mandated to do it as far as UCs, Cal States, but they do offer it for the community colleges. So I thought that's what I want to do. So I want to do that type of assessment. I have done some. The report, when you're doing those type of assessments for colleges, so the student can take it to their disability center, and then they can get accommodations. The student has to do everything because it's all confidential, it's under HIPAA, and so they take care of it. So I just do the testing, and that's it. I write up the report, I write up recommendations that they might be able to get in. Because I've worked in the community colleges, I know the recommendations that they're looking for, that any college is looking for. But with that in mind, when you're doing those assessments, you can go on their website and they will tell you what they need, what kind of tools you can use, what they're looking for. You don't have to give all the processing tests. You give the major cognitive one, like the WISC or the WJ. You give a reading. You have to give the academic piece as well. And then you put that together. And so I thought this is where I feel comfortable with, in communicating with the students, talking to them about what is their disability, how this can help them. And I also do testing for high stakes test. Yeah. So high stakes testing is like the GMAT, any type of entry into something, the LSAT, but also students that are looking to go to beauty school, the barber, they're looking to get their licenses, automotive school, any of those where they have to take a test, they all have a disability piece where they can provide accommodations, but they need someone to either test them or complete a form. If they have been tested before, just to say, this is what's going on. And so there's either one or those two things. So it's a very interesting world to get into. And I'm haven't done any yet for University of Laverne, but just going and talking to different people, like, oh God, what's that tech school for automotive? Anyway, so there's one of those. I've gone to a med school, and so just different things that I've put my flyers out.
I was going to say, so you are physically going out to these locations and introducing yourself and saying, hey, let your students know that I'm out there. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for learning disability specialist, I assume it's still private pay. The district, like the university or the college isn't paying anything, right?
No.
So, okay. All right. Interesting.
No, but some of them might be able to use their SHA or FHA account.
Yeah.
So they might be able to use funds with that. They might even be able to use, I want to say the loan, but don't quote me on that. Some of their piece of that to pay for that because it's something that goes towards education.
Interesting. Okay.
Are the assessments that you're doing like kind of as big as the psychoeducational evaluation usually is, or is it like a little bit condensed because they're at, I always use that word condensed, I don't know why, but like, because they're at the college level, so and they probably have already had assessments.
Some of them do not actually, they've never been
might
assessed.
Be a bigger assessment then.
Not really. When I was at the community college, I did the WACE, I did the Nelson Denny, and we did the Woodcock Johnson.
Okay.
Achievement, and that's what they did. And in that system, they have a whole different system in which they plug their numbers into and that they look at as far as for deficits and things like that, and then what they're able to give. And it's limited as far as like time and a half, time in a private setting, a transcriber, which I don't know, they don't have many of those sitting next to you, but you can get someone's notes, things like that. But the student has to tell the teacher, the professor, all those things.
Yeah.
So it really takes, it's really kind of a one and done, which I like. I don't have to go to any meetings. I don't have to do any of that follow-up time, which would take my time away.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'm gonna test you, write up the report. I have a results session, give them the report, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Very cool. So I know you shared some information about becoming a learning disability specialist. So we'll put that in the show notes, I believe, or at least as a comment. And so that people, if they're interested, that they can check that stuff out. So if it works, we're going to switch gears, and I want you to put on your ethics chair hat.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a bunch of hats back there, so I guess.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So feel free to grab one. And we're going to launch into these questions that some of the people who listen shared. Now, I will say there's a reoccurring theme in here. So that's what I'm going to start off with, is there's a whole lot of stuff about determining dual relationships and like what constitutes a dual relationship. So we've got like, how do I draw the line in the sand if I live in this community and I know these people? So is there, how do we, I mean, I can read you specific questions, or is there just like, how do we know? Like,
well, basically what you're looking for is you can, I saw some of the questions, and some of the questions are very specific, and it's very easy to get caught in that minutia. And it's like, well, what if? But I think if you hang all your what ifs on a framework, and I say that because there are so many things that are, let's just say, they're happening, social media and AI and all those things. And it's like, what if this, what if that? And it's impossible. So when you're looking for dual relationship and boundaries, what you really want to consider is it a conflict of interest? Is there going to be some role confusion, boundary violations, and Empower balance with the client? Is this going to benefit them? So that's what you want to look at. Is it going to harm them in any way? Either from this relationship to this relationship, how is it linked? You know what I mean? And so that's what you're looking at. Is there some type of violation? And when you're looking at, is it ethical? Is it a legal violation? I do like to look at something that's called the 4-bin approach for ethics. And so you want to look at and see if it's anything. Those 4 bins are legal, clinical, ethical, and risk management. And so asking yourself this question, and this is ideal on how clinicians can really kind of figure things out. And not that they're all separate, they do intersect a lot. But is this a legal thing? Then I need to ask a lawyer. Is this a clinical thing? Then I need to ask another LEP or MFT. We are closely aligned with the LMFTs. I'm also a licensed marriage family therapist. And when we were going to school, we have to get our things. Well, when we were going to school, they scared us to death with ethics law and ethics law, and after that was hit heavy. And not so much with school psychs. So school psychs that turn into LEPs, you don't really get that the fear of God with, oh no.
Yeah. We just have the fear of Chris Jones.
You have the fear of Chris Jones. And the fear of the VBS.
Yes, and VBS.
Right. And luckily we do not have something like what CAMP has, which is the California Association of Marriage Family Therapists. They have, it used to be called the WEB. I'm not quite sure if it's called that now, but in back of their journal, it's all the people that did something wrong and got caught by the VBS.
Yes.
Right.
That's terrifying.
So, yeah. So I was like,
a wall of shame.
You know, it is. And so, you know, consult clinical if you think it's clinical, ethical if you think it's an ethical issue, and risk management, consult your insurance company. So there's always someone to consult. But as far as boundaries, and I did see a lot of those in there, you know, is it beneficial? Is it harmful? Is it a conflict of interest? Is it going to impact the way that you are working with this person? And those are the things that you really need to think about.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions that are kind of like, if it's a person in, you know, the same community, where do I draw the line? I mean, it's kind of vague. Well, let me see. Where was one of these? Okay. Can you clarify how you would determine which client you can or cannot assess in terms of your ties with your current job or school district, as well as people you are friends with? For example, what if a sister-in-law or a friend has their friend who wants their child assessed? Could I work with them? I understand it couldn't be a direct friend, but I want to clarify the boundaries for this.
Like I said, a friend of a friend. If it's not really going to impact any relationships that you have and impact the way that you do it. So if you're saying, oh, okay, well, you know, depending on what that friend of a friend might want, let's say they're wanting a gifted assessment, right? And so for you to enter into a gifted school, these kids, they have to, you know, for us, as far as when I'm working in school and we're looking at acceleration, they have to be 125 and above. But a lot of these gifted schools, they need to be 130, 135, 140 and above. And so let's just say that, you know, a friend of a friend said, hey, can you assess? I'm looking at this gifted, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, what is that going to do? So if the kiddo does not meet that threshold, what's that going to do to the relationship with your friend? Because their friend is going to get on them and then they're going to get on you. Okay. So are you going to kind of, you know, fudge a little bit? Well, yeah, they really got it. I really kind of, you know, if you look a little deeper, that was the answer kind of thing. So that's really something that you have to think about. There's no real true and hard boundary line, you know, unless we know no sex with your client. Can't do that. You can't have them work for you.
We better have insurance for that though, just in case.
You know what? I've heard other people talking about that, and that's not something that working with adults for the colleges that's ever come across, because it's not an IEE. It's not that I'm contracting with them.
Right.
It's just they're coming in. So I haven't even dealt with that. I don't even know why they would do that, because that's a legal
It's against
issue.
the law.
it's
I have
against the law, right? So,
we are
and
that I totally switched the topic. We can come back to
that's
that
okay.
one.
Yes.
Sorry, keep going, keep going. I just was like, insurance. Oh yeah, no, don't have sex with your clients. Correct.
So that's a strong boundary. That's a
Yes.
strong no. Don't
Yeah.
do that. And having your clients work for you, and that differential of power. That's what you want to look at as well. You can't raffle off your services.
Right. I
Kind
don't
of
even
thing.
think we can't even discount our service. Like you can't like run a sale or something.
No, because it really depends on what world you're in, if you're HIPAA or if you're FERPA. And as far as where that goes, and then that law with on your website, you have to disclose your fees and things like that. It can't be you can't say you have a sliding scale. So, that's something how you can get around that. I mean, if you have a student, say, look for me, and I have a college student, and I can say I have a sliding scale, depending on whatnot. So you can do that. It's nothing that's really set in stone for that.
Okay. You ready for your next one?
Oh, I know what I want to say.
One more.
As far as going with the boundaries thing,
Mhm.
there are a lot of people, let's just say, that work in rural communities, and they're very small towns. And that they're the only person that can do that. You have to really outweigh that. Lots of times it happens to therapists, psychiatrists, of course, doctors. Of course, doctors have different rules than we do. So that happens a lot. So it really depends where you are, how that's going to impact the relationship. Is there a power differential? Is it illegal?
Good. All right.
Can we ask this one that's kind of along the same lines, but like where the boundary is with if you work in a public school, but you're also doing IEEs, like, is there a
You
hard line?
cannot do it within your district.
Right.
I believe you can do it within your SELPA, but not within your school district boundaries.
Right.
And that's, it's very interesting because one of my first clients, Claremont, went there, had the consultation, and in the consultation, the parents said they were moving to Etowanda. And they were going to be enrolling in one of my schools. So at that point, I said, I can't, this is your plan to do that. And they hadn't done it yet, but it was going to be their plan to do that. So I couldn't do that. And I just said, you have to go to your school, all the things that we have to do before we offer those services.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that because the question specifically asked, like if you wouldn't normally have access to the student, it would be okay. But I still think like you could potentially have access to the student. If you're a school psychologist, you could be all of a sudden put anywhere with any student within the district. And so you could potentially, even if it's a high school and you're like, well, I'm an elementary psych, but you might at some point get that kid in high school or something. So.
Right. And I think, it's really vague the way that it is in our CASP code of ethics for LEPs. It's vague because we have some school districts are very large,
right?
Like LA school district, very large. And if you're saying, well, you don't want to do it within your school district, I mean, look at LA. It is from this corner to that corner. And so you could say, well, if they're on this end and I'm on this end, am I really going to run into them? And am I going to be at one of their schools? Not really. So that's why it's so vague.
Well, what do you
really
think
is
in
up
that
to
case?
your discretion with that.
Okay.
I would say if there really isn't a chance that kiddo is not going to come in your realm, then I would say at your discretion, you would really have to decide on that. And you can either talk to your SELPA or whatever you use, whoever you use to kind of bounce those ideas off of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I have been a adjunct faculty at Fresno Pacific for 5 years now. So I have had the pleasure of working with many baby school psychologists who are now out in the field. And so I am now running into this very bizarre situation where I go into an IEP meeting and the assessor was a former student.
Makes you feel
And
kind of
so,
old.
right? And so I'm like, I feel like I go back and forth because I'm like, I don't have I mean, they're nobody to me, and I hope they did their best of job. But I had this whole like ethical dilemma. I'm like, wait, do I need to disclose that I mean, like, I taught them. Hopefully they did okay.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a really weird, but I've had it happen twice now where I'm just like, oh, hey, how are you? But yeah, like, so bizarre.
I now work with, and this is kind of a little off the subject, but just talking about, I don't know, age. I work with a school psychologist that went to school with my son. So that's kind of weird. She goes, oh yeah, I went to school with your son. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. My
I could
husband
be your
is
mom.
My husband's an 8th grade social studies teacher, and my very first intern, who's probably listening, hi Lauren. My very first intern was his student as an 8th grader, and then I went, I don't know how I feel about this. She was awesome though. All right, so we kind of went over boundaries and dual relationships. So this is a unique one, a very specific question that someone asked, and it is all about protocols and IEEs. And so it says, I feel like LEPs need CASP to take a position on providing copies of protocols as a condition of contracting for an IEE. How would LEPs who have concerns about this filter the information up to CASP so that they can hear about our concerns and for us all to share the information?
Well, that is a good question, but FERPA has already basically answered that question. If you're doing it as an IEE and the school is paying for you, you are considered a third party. And therefore, the school, you're under FERPA, not HIPAA.
I've heard the opposite. Like if you're an independent contractor, you are not under FERPA.
It depends what you're doing.
An IEE, as an IEE.
You're under FERPA if the district is paying for you. And so I did come across that question. And so I was like, are we under HIPAA, FERPA? So I did contact FERPA. And they're easy to contact. You can email them, ask them any question. And I gave them that specific scenario. I'm an independent person. I'm doing an IEE. The school wants protocols and my reports. I gave my report to the client, which is the parent. What am I to do? Am I under HIPAA or FERPA? And they say, well, you're not under HIPAA with any of this. You're under FERPA. And then they pointed that out or as a third party, and it's under outsourcing. I did send Bethany a list of websites. I did look at those questions prior to that, and it's their answer was pretty specific on that. The protocols, you can give them to the school. Now, of course, you can have your own personal notes that they can't have. But as far as the protocols,
basically they paid for them.
They paid for them.
That's so interesting. Because like, if you were, let's say it's a clinical psychologist, who does an IEE for a school district, that person would need to give their protocols to the school district for an IEE?
That's my understanding from speaking directly with FERPA, is that is they're paying you are a third party. And I know it seems like it shouldn't be because they're your protocols, but it does become part of the educational record.
Does it though? Because it's an independent assessment.
It does. I know. I went back and forth with FERPA and I thought, no, these are my protocols, and I'm like, So
I've,
you
I'm going to
can,
have to
it's,
research that more. I've heard such strong arguments from the other side,
and who
just from
from
other people who've been doing
independent.
research in it too.
Well, you're welcome to contact FERPA. I can forward my email that I got from them. And I even asked again. I was like, but
Yeah, it
I'm
doesn't.
this and this. And they said, "Oh,
I
that's
guess I don't, I want clarity as to why does it concern people to share them? I think
the
that's why,
protocol
because I saw this, yeah, sharing their protocols. Like what's, like I got to
to
see
share them
their
with the
site.
district."
Yeah. Like to me, I don't see it as a
Problem. Yeah,
right. I mean, like, sure, they can look at it and see what I did. I mean, I wrote it in the report, but I wasn't sure why, like, why does that make people uncomfortable? Like that
yeah.
they need to have ownership of it.
I think, and I think I don't feel very strongly either way. Like I wouldn't care if they saw it. I just don't really want to have to spend time trying to pull stuff out of Q Interactive, like, or you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
what, like I don't have time for that.
yeah.
But I
Yeah.
don't
I
care.
scan everything when I'm done. And so I can shred all my paperwork because you have to keep it for so long. And so then I just share the folder
I
of
just like
scanned ones.
use
Yeah,
a
you have to
lot
keep it
of
for 10 years.
electronic records. You know, it's
Yeah.
For some
I
people, it is a big issue because they feel like they may be violating the client, that their client is the parent. But even
I
if the
think
parent asks to see them, you have 45 days for them to take a look at it. But the school can request it. And, you're going to have to give up the protocols.
I think that's what I heard was like just that as a private practitioner, we are independent. And so then even if the school district was paying, the client would be the family and we'd show the protocols, but not
You
be
could.
giving them to the school. Like they don't become part of the school record because they're an independent.
That's that showing the parent the protocol, showing them, that's what we like to do. Of course, because of the intellectual property for the test makers, right? That's their preference,
Right.
is not to give it up. So it is part of our responsibility to protect that as much as we can. But then, you have that, and sometimes, a lot of times, you have things that really conflict. But you have FERPA, and so that's really what we're under when we're doing that.
I think
And so, no, go ahead.
the other argument that I heard was that districts could use that against the independent evaluator if it were litigated. Like they'd be looking at, like the protocols of the independent evaluator
That's
to
what you
try to
have
poke holes
insurance.
in that.
We haven't, but we have insurance. But I don't know how many times a district takes the independent evaluator to due process, because the school, they don't have to take what the IEE says. That's up to their discretion. They
Right.
can say,
Under
"Oh, this is great."
consideration.
They're like, "This is great. Okay, but we're not going with that. So we're going to do this." So I don't know how often taking them to due process really happens, since all they have to do is consider it.
I would think it would be, in that case, I would think it would be that the parent is suing the district and wants the private evaluators evaluation considered. So then the school district attorney might be trying to, rip apart somebody's evaluation. Again, this is
And the
all
parents can,
hypothetical. These are just things
right,
I've heard.
right. And the
I hope
parents
I'm
can have
never
those
in
copies
this
as well.
situation. Yeah, I hope I'm never in that situation. But I think that those are the arguments that I've heard for like why people are very cautious about protocols.
No, I get it. I totally get it. But also, it's very important to have in your informed consent specifically spell that out. What you're going to do with the protocols, who has access to the protocols, why they have access to the protocols, that you are under FERPA because you're paid by the district. So it's really important to have that you have all that transparency that I know a lot of LEPs do not think about. Just because there's no LEP school.
Right. So
right.
I never, maybe this is bad, but I'm just going to own it. And you can tell me that I need to do it differently. I never do an informed consent on an IEE because I'm assuming that like they've already consented with the district. Should I be doing my own? Fantastic.
Always.
I had no idea.
Always, whenever you're doing anything, you need to have an informed consent because it really is transparent between you and the district. Make sure in your contract you spell things out for your contract for the district, as well as your informed consent for the parent, because they need to know how your records were kept.
Yeah.
Right. So all of that stuff that goes.
I just never thought of it before. I just think of like, oh, they already did their consent. So blah, blah. That is, I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm gonna fix it. Cool. To kind of move into, there was a question that did a twofer. They did the protocols, but then they also wanted to talk about what Jana is very fired up about lately.
Oh, yes.
And that is sexual abuse and molestation insurance requirements for district or from districts for IEE providers. So like, is that allowed? I mean, do we have any steps that we can, I haven't had to deal with it yet. I know Jana has in her practice that she's had schools requiring, and then I've seen lots of things online of people saying like they're expecting these giant $multi-million policies, which cost, $5,000 to have. Yeah. So is that just something we have to deal with? Can we say no? And what?
I really am not the one to answer that. I think Mr. Jones would be able to answer that more because he does have his independent practice. And I'm not sure, and listening to the last podcast that you had,
we didn't have a say in the matter. We were just hoping you could tell us something else.
No, sorry. I can't. It really is at the discretion of the district and what they want. You can talk to the district, but if that's going to be their policy, if you want to wheel and deal with them, then that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, I'm almost like, well, if they say you need a $5,000 policy, then you're going to raise your rates $5,000 to cover the cost of it. Right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, like, what else is your recourse? I mean, if they are having these expectations that their providers any provider that came on their campus needs to have this like specific thing, then to me, it's like, well, if you want that, then you're going to have to pay for it.
Right. I unfortunately, I just don't have an answer to that. I wish that wasn't true, that they did require that. And I haven't spoken to my insurance carrier about that either. I would assume that everybody has kind of the same one. And now it just escapes my mind.
Yeah, I use CPH and
yes,
we have unlimited defense coverage for false allegations. But they're not about to cover us for committing a crime.
Right.
Because who would? But there are a few companies out there who are, and they're very few and far between. So not my general liability nor my professional liability will cover that. Several districts that I have contracted with, I actually I didn't even realize that it said in the contract that I was supposed to have that, but they didn't ask for it. So I didn't provide it. But when I went back and looked, because now I'm like, I'm going to go back and look. So some of them, but then others of them I've said, well, I don't have that, but I have this, I don't have the 1 million, 5, that whatever it is, 1 million, 5 million, whatever. And so I I say, but I do have, then I say, but I do have unlimited, like for false allegations. And then they say, okay. And then some are holding the line. And I'm like, well.
And I don't even know, districts have things because their lawyers tell them,
Right.
but they don't necessarily know what that means or why. So maybe with you saying, why have unlimited, defense, they're like, oh, okay. So, for false allegations, and maybe, I don't know, but just assuming that they don't really know why or what it really means to have that piece of insurance. And I don't know if the school districts have talked to the insurance companies about that, as far as, hey, this is what we need from people. And, are you going to offer it? I have no idea where that came from. That
might be a good way to respond, though, is just to say, are you aware that that's a $5,000 addition to my insurance fees? And I have these other things. I mean, that might be a good way to just like have the conversation go. I mean,
right. Or what does that exactly mean? Can you kind of spell that out? Because maybe I do. It just doesn't exactly say this, but maybe it means the same thing and it covers the same thing. So having a conversation.
It doesn't. No, they're separate. Like what they are asking for is literally a separate policy that covers you. If that covers whatever it is that it's supposed to cover, if you did commit that crime, like if you did do that, and I can see that making sense. Like if you were like a company that went to campus and provided, like counseling services for many students on campus for year after year, right? Something like that might come up, but like parents bring kids to our office. Like we're never on their campus. Like they're always with their parents. Like they're not in the room with us, but like they're with us for such a short amount of time. It just really doesn't make sense in this kind of circumstance, but I don't think they're contracting a whole lot with people who are doing things outside. I don't know. So I don't know why. I don't know. All I know is that now that it's been coming up more and more, it's frustrating. It's just like that's way more money than any of our other insurances. And I would get it if it weren't so expensive, but I just like don't want to budge on this.
And how many just private pay clients are you getting?
We get mostly private pay clients.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we don't, the IEEs are like, good to have, but I don't hang my hat on like doing IEEs, right? So, I mean, I have the insurance that I need in order to function as the business doing our business, So anyway, we don't have the answer to that. All we know is that it's stupid that,
all we know is that it's required and
and I guess you can say no to the contract, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've said, if you don't want to do it, then we just won't do this case.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's your option.
I did send the district that court case, that case that I posted on social media about, I don't know if anybody saw it, but I posted on Empower LEP in the Facebook group, like a case law around it. Like, so there was one case where the person, I mean, it was during COVID, but like where the IEE person said, like, I'm not getting this. And the district lost. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I sent it.
But still haven't heard back. Required it, and then they went to court and said that they couldn't require it.
The parent sued and said, it's ridiculous that you wouldn't let this happen, and because the district, the IEE provider said, I've never been asked to get this. And so they like stalled the process because of it. And then the parent won.
Okay. Well, there's some precedent set.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to tell all your parents to sue them. Just sue them. Oh dear.
Or you can have a conversation with the district.
That would probably be better, but
that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying.
Yeah. I mean, you could go that route, Gina, but what fun is that? All right. Well, we are running short on time. Do we think we can cover that last question? We have one last one. It's a very specific PSW related question. Are you a PSW gal, Gina?
I am a PSW
Ooh,
gal,
okay,
but let's
good.
see, what are they asking? I
It
did see
says,
something on there.
I have taken several of Jenny Ponzurik's classes on PSW, and I'm still stuck wondering if we actually need to refer to the Ed Code processing disorders, even when using PSW as a means of identifying discrepancy. Meaning, if we don't evaluate in the Ed Code areas, e.g. sensory motor attention, but instead cover CHC areas that are not in the Ed Code, but are linked to achievement, are we correctly formulating eligibility under SLD?
I would say yes. We have a lot of psychs in districts that do CHC model because they're doing the WJ, cognitive and achievement, and that really fits in. That's where it fits in. So they're talking about that and how they correspond to those different areas of eligibility. It is pretty laid out on how they do correspond. So you could do CHC. As opposed to just kind of saying, phonological, sensory motor, visual, those areas in your report. It really ties into that. It does take care of those crystallized general ability, crystallized information. That's the oral language, all those areas. So yes.
Yeah, I think that it's just like terminology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely, because there are a lot of people that do the CHC model.
Yeah. And I think it is especially confusing for new school psychs because you think they're all different things.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, no, it's the same label for the same thing. It's just a different test that gave it so that is confusing.
Definitely. I did want to, what was that question? There was one about testing African-American students.
Oh, yeah. Chris answered that one for us earlier.
Oh, okay, great.
But let's see what you say.
Let's see if
what did he say? I'm going to say, yeah, if you're an IE person, you can give IQ tests to African-American students.
He told us
you can give it to him.
That's not what he said. He just said, if you're doing an IEE and the district doesn't give it, then maybe don't give it.
Couldn't do it. He said we can do it in private practice.
Yes, you can do it in private practice as much as you want. If you're doing an IEE, you really want to look at what the district is doing.
Fine.
So it's just like in our paper, right? That we clarified the CDE's position on going ahead and going forward with testing African-American students. And so we really do caution the school psychologist, you can't just willy-nilly go ahead and do it on your own. You really need to go by what your district is doing. And, kind of tread softly, see what they're doing, and see how you can maybe start baby steps with that. But as far as if you're doing an IEE and a contract with them, you really want to go by how, their playing field. It's their little league team and you're on their field. You're the guest. So you want to do that.
Kind of tying this last question into a prior question in another LEP group that I have been in, somebody asked the question, if I'm an IEE provider and I go to a district and they are, say, a PSW model district, am I bound then to only assess utilizing that model? And my thought was, well, there's 3 models in the state, so that might be their district preference. And so for me, like, I always try to mimic theirs, but if there's another caveat, I'll do more than one model, right? Because they all are discrepancy. I mean, truly, we're just looking at.
You don't have to. I wouldn't think that you would have to. And this is just it's just purely my opinion, as opposed to the African-American thing and assessments. That's something because you want your report, it's going to go into their files. And so it becomes part of the educational record. Whether you do it in PSW or not, because they've adopted it, I think that's probably a preference. Like I said before, they only have to consider your report and your documentation. They don't have to take it.
See, that's why I was like, we should just do it. Like,
Well,
Do what?
I feel like if they, oh, go ahead.
yeah, I feel like we should just test African Americans as an IEE provider. Like, I just think we should just do it because the CDE has already said, like, do it with caution, but you can do it. I mean, they're not going to slap our hand, is what Chris said, is like, they're not like saying it's great, but they're also like, we're not going to chase you down to find you. And I'm like, well, if we want the momentum to be moving forward, that we have this equal, practice across race, like, because we're apparently still in the dark ages. I'm like, why aren't we as LEPs just moving forward? And if the school district doesn't want to take that portion of our assessment into account, they can choose to do that. But I'm like, let's just do it. But
they can. You might not be asked back.
That's the thing. Yeah. And I think we're like always kind of, we want the district to consider what we're saying.
Yeah.
And if the district and their attorneys are saying we use discrepancy model, you use discrepancy, like if you want them to consider your findings in the way that they consider them. I mean,
yeah, we're friends, right? We want to be friends and have that good relationship with the districts that we're serving, but also not have any type of bias and be fair. And, we're doing our assessment. If they don't do something, we're going to do the comprehensive assessment, just because that's what we do as LEPs, as an independent evaluator. There are plenty of times when you get a report from out of state and with an African American student and it has IQ test in there. So, stuff does happen, but, I would say that if you want to maintain that relationship with that district and not be adversarial just because I got to get it in there.
No, I told Chris, nice. I was like, I came back from CASP and I was like so jazzed. And I was like, I'm going to do this. This is so great. And I went and I had a contract for 4 IEEs for one district and 3 of the kids were African American. And I was so ready. And then the district flat out told me, like, it was a caveat, is they're like, you need to understand we are not doing this. And I was like, fine. But if they hadn't specifically told me, I probably would have done it. And then it was funny.
They stopped you right in your tracks.
Right? They did. I was like, all right, fine. You told me I couldn't do it.
They saw it in your eyes.
Yes. But they gave the kids DAWs or DAS or whatever we call it. They'd already done that. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to.
I have a question just in wrapping up, and then I'll let Bethany wrap up. But Gina, so as the ethics committee chair, right, for CASP, do you, how might people get involved? Like if they, what do you do as the committee chair? And then how does it all work? And do you need people to volunteer, and how do people get involved?
Well, first of all, you mean just for the ethics or on any committee?
I guess kind of all of it.
Okay. Well, it's on our website, and we do have get involved, and there's a little thing that you fill out what you're interested in, and then someone will get back to you. And what happens is that comes to the committee chair, and then the committee chair reaches out. We're always looking for volunteers. CASP is built on the backs of volunteers. That's how we operate. We're not paid. We're not attorneys as far as with CASP, with the ethics. It is our opinion, and we can't, we don't tell you exactly what to do. We just, kind of refer back to code of ethics and things like that. But we're always looking for people that are interested in it, because, we need that from our community. We need different viewpoints. We need people that are really interested in it. When I got into CASP, just my little journey getting to there, I went to school. I was getting my doctorate at the same time as Maureen Schroeder, who was the CASP president at the time. And we were talking about things, and we were we graduated, our classes ended right when COVID started, the shutdown started. And so she called me and she goes, you know what, you would be perfect to work on this paper with the assessment team. And she, are you interested? I said yes. And I say yes to everything. My husband says there is such a word, no. But the reason I say yes is because it's all opportunities.
Yeah.
And I feel as a school psych, I don't want to be stagnant and feel like I'm just in that wheel. So I'm open to all these opportunities because it gives life to what I do. And I feel like, hey, I have something outside of this that I'm giving back that has something to do with school psychology. So I know a lot of people say that they're busy and they can't do it. It's not always a whole lot of commitment right now. Because AI is out. We're working on, they worked on a paper for AI, and we're also working on revamping or adding to the code of ethics to add in AI. So we're doing that, and we have a ad hoc committee that's under the umbrella of ethics. It's our AI ethics committee. So we have something that is specific to that. And, I would say that anyone that's interested in joining CASP, do it, get involved. You're really going to feel invigorated because you're giving back, especially when I go to the conferences and I'm presenting. And you see everybody, and everybody, they're hungry. They are hungry for information. And I am so excited to give back. That's my way of giving back to our profession. And so Maureen, said, okay, you'd be good on this paper. And then it just kind of went to there. And then under Janine Topapalian, she was like, oh, okay. Hey, you'd be good to be the co-chair for the Ideal Committee, which is our inclusion committee. And I was like, okay. She's like, you said yes, and you don't even know what it's about. I said, I don't care. I just want to give back. I want to do it. So I did that. And then Melissa Wood, which is our current president, said, hey, I think you'd be great as an ethics chair. And I was like, what, me? And then, of course, the imposter syndrome sets in. It's like, I don't know if I could do that. That's a big responsibility for the whole state of California. I'm the one that's answering to that. And I have a committee behind me. And then finally, after talking to my husband, and people are like, you can do it. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. So, imposter syndrome sets in every time we try something new, but, always walking through that opportunity, that door of opportunity. And I'm going to say a little thing about APA because I'm also the ethics chair for APA Division 16. And not a lot of people know that APA has a Division 16 for school psychologists.
Oh.
And that we even have an ethics division. So you can get in contact with us and ask us questions. We are school psychologists. A lot are professors. I'm the only one that's, I won't say that I'm the only one. We haven't had the one that's, I'm the only one that's really in the trenches doing assessments at this point. But we have awesome people, and it's a 3-year commitment to be on that one. And they asked me to be the chair, and I said, great, I need a co-chair because I can't do this. And so got a co-chair. And so we've written papers. We're going to be presenting at APA in Seattle in August. And so that was another imposter syndrome piece. It was like, no, I don't know if I can do it, because you had to apply for it and write a resume and a letter, and be picked out of, all the people that really applied. So I just try to get in as much as I can.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And so I can be as knowledgeable as I can for the people that are asking.
Yeah.
And need the help.
Awesome.
But definitely, yeah. Yep. So we have school psychology everywhere in APA.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gina, for sharing some of that expertise with us today and letting us pelt you with questions, because that was what it
No
was.
problem.
So thank you so much. And we will wrap up today's episode and see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Empower LEP Collaborative Podcast. Episodes can be found at empowerlepcollaborative.com. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, or if you have any questions for us, don't hesitate to connect. We would love to learn more. Jana can be found at jana@empowerlep.com, and Bethany can be reached at bethany@lepcollaborative.com.